Hey guys, Miss Warren here. Today I'm going to be talking about drawing the shoe on black paper. Now the purpose of this assignment, the reason we're starting with black paper and then we're going to have metallic colored pencils, is that we're going to focus on drawing the highlights instead of the shadows. Normally when you're drawing, you're looking at the shadows because you start with white paper and you're drawing the shadows on your paper. Now we're going to be looking at the highlights. So the shoe I'm drawing today is, I borrowed my friend's dad's army boot because I thought it was really interesting, and you can see all the reflected light on it, like in the wrinkles and on the edge of the things, and it's just black, so that kind of simplifies it, kind of like the paper, so I can focus on drawing the highlights. Where it's lighter, like here, I'm going to be pressing harder, and where it's medium, I'm going to press a medium amount. Where it's super dark here, I'm not going to color in at all. And I will eventually be cutting this out. Now, you can set up your shoes right in front of you to draw, or you can take a picture. I took a photograph of the shoe in two different positions because we're going to be drawing two different shoes on this paper. What I don't want to see is just the bottom of the shoe, because that's kind of boring, unless you've got something really intricate. But even then, I'd want, if you did the shoe upside down, I'd want you to draw anything that overlaps or comes out of it. I would prefer like a side angle or front angle or something like this, but I'm going to be drawing the shoe from two different angles. So kind of choose your angles and choose your shoes. Now, I also discourage things like slides because those won't give you as many interesting values, like light highlights to draw, as a like tennis shoe or a boot. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up my photograph that I took on my phone. So I took 3 different pictures. On this one and this one, I kind of put a plain, I like moved a lot of the stuff out of the way and put like a white piece of paper behind it so I wouldn't be distracted. So I'm gonna go ahead and edit this one. And you can turn up, if you took a picture, you can turn up the highlights. I'm gonna turn up the highlights, and I'm gonna turn up the shadows to make it a lot of contrast. So the difference between light and dark, so I can really see where the shadows and highlights are on this. I might also, I'm going to see if I can make it black and white so I'm not focusing on the color, I'm focusing on the highlights and the shadows. Okay, so now we're going to be focusing on, anytime we draw from observation, we're going to look at size, shape, and position. So we're going to look at the size of it compared to the paper. We're going to look at the shape of it, and we're going to look at all the placements, and we're going to be comparing value, the lights and darks. So if I'm going to fit 2 shoes on this paper, and this is my first one, I'm actually, maybe I'll flip it this way so I can kind of go do the toes across the top and the tall part here, so then I can fit the other one into this space. So I'm gonna try and make it kind of fill up as much as the page as possible, because we're gonna be eventually cutting these out. So I'm thinking I want like that little edge here at the top. I'm gonna go down, the other one overlaps here. If you have a black shoe, I recommend putting like a white background so you can really see the shape of the edge of your shoe. It's a little hard to see right here because I got a bunch of shadow. Okay, and then, let's see, this kind of comes straight down and there's like a wrinkle. It's a little hard to see because of the cast shadow below it. I'm gonna zoom in some to kind of get that shape of the toe. Gets a little dark in there, so it's kind of hard to see. So I'm going to come back to And then this wraps around the edge here. Okay, now I'm gonna start, now that I have the general shape, I'm gonna start building up the highlights. So here, I'm gonna flip this back over so I can get a closer look at it. Flip my paper over. Looks pretty good. There's a huge highlight right in the middle of this shoe here. So I'm gonna kind of circle that. And then there's some highlight that kind of goes up the shoe over here. I'm focusing on where everything gets bright, and then you can kind of see highlights on the stitching just a little bit. And this whole area on the top of the shoe is a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna very carefully kind of start to shade, or I guess highlight this in. And I'm gonna leave my darkest points dark. So there's catches the light here. Then it kind of fades out there, so it catches more light on this side. And it gets really dark down here. Okay, this part catches a lot of light too. So think about you kind of, as you shade or highlight in, wrapping around the shoe, and there's a little highlight that goes down here. This part's really dark here. Let's see. It's like in shadow because of the shape of the boot. And then it has a really strong highlight up here. So I'm gonna press harder where that highlight is. And then there's a little bit of highlight around the top. This whole piece here, especially on the side, is lighter. And then look, there's all along this side here is a little bit lighter than this cast shadow. Now, you don't want to do large marks. You want to keep your marks pretty small when you're coloring in and shading in. Look at this wrinkle here. And then this is a little bit right below this line. So I'm like, you see this dark shadow line here. I'm going to start highlighting. Oh, and it gets really bright right here where it folds out and catches the light. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop this video, and the next video is gonna be a time lapse just so you can kind of see my processes. I'm comparing size, shape, and position and value. I'm looking for the highlights, and I'm gonna slowly layer up and build and color on and press hard where it's the lightest and avoid drawing on where it is darker.